You are not making decisions based on facts. You are making decisions based on how facts are presented. And there's a controlled experiment that proves IT with life and death choices. Would you rather have a surgery that has a 90% survival rate or avoid a surgery that has a 10% mortality rate? Most people feel differently about those two options, but they describe exactly the same procedure with exactly the same outcomes. Would you rather eat beef that is 95% fat-free or beef that contains 5% fat? Same product, but one sounds like a good choice and one doesn't. This isn't just marketing semantics. This is a deep cognitive bias that operates on your preferences, your risk decisions, and your moral judgments. And it works even when you know it's happening. The framing effect is the phenomenon where people respond differently to the same information depending on how it is presented. Specifically, whether it is framed in terms of gains or losses. Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman identified it as part of prospect theory in 1981 and demonstrated it with a set of problems that became classics in psychology. The core finding: the way options are described activates different emotional responses and different risk preferences, even when the options are logically equivalent. Tversky and Kahneman presented two groups of participants with the same scenario. Imagine an unusual disease is expected to kill 600 people. Two programs exist to combat it. Group 1 received this framing. Program A, 200 people will be saved. Program B, 1/3 probability that 600 will be saved, 2/3 probability that no one will be saved. Which would you choose? Most people, 72%, chose Program A. Certainty of 200 saved vs. A gamble felt safer. Group 2 received this framing of the same scenario. Program C, 400 people will die. Program D, 1/3 probability that nobody will die, 2/3 probability that 600 will die. Program C and Program A are identical. Program D and Program B are identical. But presented in loss terms, the majority flipped. 78% chose Program D, the gamble, because the certain loss of 400 people was now intolerable. Same outcome, opposite decision, pure framing. Once you understand the framing effect, language that was invisible becomes loud. Save vs. lose. Risk-free vs. 1 in 100 chance of harm. 95% fat-free vs. 5% fat. 4 out of 5 doctors recommend vs. 1 in 5 doctors doesn't. Political language is almost entirely framing. Tax relief frames taxes as pain to be relieved. Investment in public services frames them as a positive contribution. The facts are the same. The emotional resonance is designed. Negotiators use it. An offer framed as "this gets you 80% of what you asked for" feels better than "this means you're losing 20%. Doctors use it. A drug presented as having a 70% success rate is more likely to be accepted than the same drug presented as having a 30% failure rate. The most sophisticated version is when framing happens across time. Starter home frames small as temporary and optimistic. Underperforming asset frames the same house as a loss. The physical property hasn't changed. What changed is the emotional context in which your brain is now evaluating it. The standard counter to framing is to consciously translate any framed statement into its equivalent alternative form. When you see 95% fat-free, translate it 5% fat. When you see 300 people will die, translate it 300 people will survive. When you see this has a 70% success rate, ask what the failure rate is and how that feels. This is harder than it sounds, not because the translation is complex, but because the original framing has already activated an emotional response. You have to notice that your gut feeling is partly a product of word choice, not just fact content. A practical habit for any significant decision: ask the person presenting the option to give you both framings. You're telling me how many people will be saved. Can you also tell me how many won't be? The resistance to providing both framings is itself informative. Language is not a neutral container for facts. It is a shaping force. The same information, packaged differently, produces measurably different choices in careful, rational, informed people. That's not a bug in human reasoning, it's a feature of how the brain processes meaning. But knowing this feature exists means you can start asking, what frame am I being handed here? And what would this feel like if it were said differently? That question doesn't make you immune to framing, but it gives you a moment of pause between the presentation and the reaction, and that moment is where real agency lies. Drop a comment. What's an example of framing you've noticed being used on you recently? Advertising, politics, work, anything. And subscribe. New Psychology Breakdown every week.